Welcome back to another episode of Girl, Get Your Groove Back. I'm your host, Coach Jamila, root cause wellness coach, guiding women to sustainable health and alignment without the Band-Aid fixes. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, y'all. And today we're diving into a powerful conversation about women's health, especially how breast cancer, menopause, perimenopause, and hormones like estrogen can all affect joint pain, energy, and overall well-being. I'm joined by the amazing Dr. Satcher, a double board certified physiatrist and functional medicine expert who's helping women move from pain to power by understanding what's really happening in their bodies. We talk about everything from joint health and hormone balance to the importance of sleeping, nutrition, movement, and managing stress. So if you've been feeling out of sync with your body, maybe a little achy, tired, or just overwhelmed by all the health advice out there, because there's a lot, this episode is for you. Get ready to take notes, y'all. So grab your pen and your paper. Get ready to feel seen and learn how to simplify your path back to strength, balance, and vitality. Let's get into it. Hey, y'all, and welcome to Girl, Get Your Groove Back. I'm your host, Coach Jamila, and I have Dr. Satcher with us today. She is a plethora of knowledge. Y'all get your pens and paper because you're going to want to take notes. Today, we're really going to start honoring Breast Cancer Month and also honoring our women who are in menopause. Let's just dive right in. Thank you so much for being on today's episode. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm
Yes.
excited to be here.
Yes. The first question I have for you is many women, especially in menopause, experience joint pain. They experience joint pain. They don't know where it's coming from. And then, as you stated, even after breast cancer treatments, they're experiencing joint pain. Do you know why this happens and what they can do to help relieve some of those symptoms?
So it's like new information, but not new information. It's the hormonal fluctuations, and they both, breast cancer or people that have had treatment for breast cancer, and then people with menopause or perimenopause have had a decrease in their estrogen level. And they've probably also had a decrease in their progesterone level. But there are so many receptors for estrogen all over our bodies. And unfortunately, in the past, they didn't really do that much research in trying to figure out the symptoms because it was men doing the research and men on men. And I think that they learned from looking at testosterone that men were having a lot of the same types of symptoms from their testosterone going down. And another thing about them ignoring women is when you have female cancer, I think they kind of figured out that a lot of it was tied to estrogen, whether it's breast or uterine or ovarian. It's like there's usually a problem with estrogen metabolism in the gut and the liver. But this is more recent information.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have this information before. Other areas that we've seen findings are with the heart and the lungs. Some they're seeing that women that are menopausal have more heart disease than premenopause, and estrogen receptors are affecting that too. So it's like we have estrogen receptors on the bones, ligaments, muscles, and it's affecting the flexibility. It's affecting a lot of things about our bone and muscle metabolism.
So with estrogen being a big denominator in this equation, what can women do, or what do they need to do with the estrogen? Is it hormone replacement therapy? Is it nutrition? What would you advise on that?
So it's very individual. But of course, for women that have had breast cancer, I would say that they probably need to try other things before jumping to the estrogen hormone replacement. Number one, hormone replacement, it's going to be tough for them to find someone that will do hormone replacement with estrogen if they've had breast cancer,
Right.
because estrogen is kind of like a growth hormone. So if you start giving someone who's had really any kind of tumor, because they're correlating it with colon cancer in men and women. So, we know that it's kind of like a tumor growth factor. And so it's dicey. But we are getting into discussions now about doing hormone replacement in people that have had breast cancer. But they have to be out from the cancer and cancer free for a while. But as you know, there are foods that can affect that estrogen progesterone hormonal balance.
Yeah.
And that can actually help. So yeah, there's that. And there are also exercises and also knowing your past and medical and surgical history, because a lot of women that have had children may not realize, but they probably realize when they were in labor how the pelvis was just spreading apart, and that the ligaments and the connecting tissue of the bones was just letting go to let the baby come out. A lot of times after the baby comes out, there's dysfunctional movement of the muscles in the floor of the pelvis. Also, the bones may not be lined up the way they're supposed to be lined up in the pelvis. And I have a background in physical medicine and rehab as well as the functional medicine.
Yeah.
So back when I was in academics at Northwestern in Chicago, I used to consult at the women's hospital, seeing people that were either in labor, pre-labor, or post-labor. Maybe they had pelvic surgery, because that's also another thing that can throw the balance off. But I would say most commonly they've gone through labor and they may have had back pain or pelvic pain intermittently, but they didn't realize what was going on and that they had a dysfunction. But then when you go and drop the estrogen out, then it's more pronounced.
I can attest, because after I had babies, I was like, "Ooh, my back felt weak." It took a minute for me to get back to where I needed to be.
And you're a very active person, as am
Yes.
I.
I was
Yeah,
like,
and
"Excuse me."
I I had pelvic surgery over 20 years ago. Yeah, for
Really?
fibroids. Yeah, but I didn't have everything taken out. But still, they have to cut ligaments. So if you had a C-section or if you had pelvic surgery, they have to cut through ligaments to get to the uterus. And that leaves the uterus kind of hanging in space sometimes,
Right.
and maybe just one or two stringy ligaments holding it into the pelvis.
Wow.
And those ligaments are connecting to muscles that form a bowl in the pelvis. And so when that's disrupted, when there's been a cut or something, that's like if you have a building in the front that has pillars
Yeah.
and it's cemented in the ground,
Mm.
kick the cement to the side, that pillar might still stand, right? But then if you knock it or if you lean on it, it's going to break.
Ooh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You gotta be very gentle with yourself, it sounds
You have to
like.
be gentle, but you also have to realize that you're trying to strengthen the infrastructure. So other muscles that you can strengthen, you're trying to strengthen those, but they have to be in balance.
Okay. What would you say maybe 1 or 2 exercises that people could do who are struggling with a weak pelvic floor?
So something that really helped me before I even realized what was going on was Zumba.
Okay.
And Zumba, most people have access to at their gyms, or if they don't feel like they have the dancing gene, or you don't even have to get it that much. I mean, there are guys in the Zumba classes that I go to, and they're not so great, but
Yeah.
they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe they have prostate surgery, which imparts the same kind of weakness, or prostate problems. Yep. So, because they have you moving your pelvis all kinds of ways in that class. Another thing is hula hoop. Yeah.
I'm a hula hoop pro. Let me just put that out there.
Who are you?
I can hula hoop for like 10 minutes nonstop. Okay.
Wow.
That's good to know. Okay.
And now they have weighted hula hoops.
Yes.
So once you master the pelvic movement to keep the hula hoop elevated, then you can also buy weighted hula hoops, and that's even harder to keep
Yeah.
elevated. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, y'all hula hoop and y'all go to Zumba. I mean, even if you don't have pelvic issues, that's good to know. Okay.
Those are really good for you. One more is
Yeah.
bridging, like laying on your back, bending up your knees, and pushing your pelvic into the air. That's one level of it. You could
Yeah.
do it one legged. You can like do one leg in the air and keep pushing the leg in the air while you're keeping the rest of the pelvis equal or level.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are all kind of variations on that bridging exercise.
Yeah.
And if any of you have been to physical therapy, I'm sure they had you doing bridging because most people have weak gluteal muscles.
Hmm. That's very good. So Zumba, hula hooping, and bridging are three
Mhm.
really good exercises to help the pelvic floor. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm also curious. A lot of people, as they're aging, and I think, like you said, a lot of the research has been on men, but people feel like as I age, it's normal for me to start having joint pain. It's normal for me to get weaker. And I know you and I don't agree with that because it doesn't have to be normal. I know estrogen hormone balance plays a big role. What is underneath the surface of aging in the connection to joint pain?
So, what I see a lot of is that people don't want to adjust their lifestyle to their age. Like, if you type in exercises for people that are 20, exercises for people that are 30, and go decade by decade, you're going to see different things. Like for someone in their 60s, 70s, they need to focus on first making sure they don't fall. So balance. But I have seen more recently, and probably because of COVID, that younger people, 30s and 40s, have poor balance.
Mm.
And balance has to do with the integrity of the nervous system. And I'm sure that COVID is affecting that integrity. People want to keep doing the same thing because it worked for them when they were 20, but we have to change. And I would say menopausal women, women that have had breast cancer therapy, are a little bit weak and need to focus on protein and the nutrition to rebuild the muscle,
Yeah.
need to focus on bone density. So, what are you starting out with? Do you already have fractures in your spine? I mean, it's crazy, but we are seeing people in their 40s and 50s with fractures in their spine. We need to be doing more weight training in addition to the balance stuff. Like for balance training, you could be doing qigong, you could be doing tai chi. If you go to exercise classes like the silver sneakers
Yeah.
at the they're going to be, and it's interesting because you see younger people in there because they're doing balance exercise. And they've done studies. I know you guys saw the studies in the New York Times, you heard about them in the news. Like, you can't stand on one foot for so many seconds, your balance is not good, right? Hmm.
And that's interesting. I do balancing every morning when I brush my teeth. So I'll stand on one
Like,
leg every 30 seconds. And I'm working on now on doing it while I close my eyes because when I close my eyes, it's a
it's
little bit
harder.
harder. I'm like, wait a minute. So there's definitely ways that we can incorporate it in our day to day. That's super
Hmm.
easy, to
Hmm.
maintain that balance.
I mean, 30 seconds is great, but I go to a class at the gym where the teacher has us doing a one legged exercise for a few minutes
Mm,
because we're working on the glutes on the other side. And when the glutes get weak, then you're more prone to fall.
yeah,
And you can't get up from a chair
right.
without using the arms of the chair.
Right.
Mm.
So glute exercises aren't just for big booty,
No, no.
which is what a lot of people are like. I need to get the
No,
rounded.
no. The glute is one of the largest muscles in the body, and it's super important for helping you to keep balance.
Good to know. What do you feel is the most common misconception that women have about joint pain in midlife and even after breast cancer treatment?
I think it relates to the last question in that people think they can keep doing the same thing they did when they're in their 20s, and they kind of need to switch things up. And as we age, we need to do some stretching, but we also need to pay attention to injuries and past injuries because they're going to become more prominent and more pronounced, especially if you're sedentary. And we have a lot of people who are sedentary.
Yeah.
I know you see this too.
Mhm.
And women don't want to mess up their hair exercising.
Mm.
A lot of times I'm recommending that people get in the pool because they've been so sedentary and they're so stiff and they can't do anything that we need to put them in the pool. That's like the lightest weight kind of exercise that we have in our toolbox.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to do pool because you got to get your hair wet, but not necessarily super wet, but you do have to get in the water to do
Yeah.
the pool.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so on that note, I have a swimming cap I'm gonna recommend. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm gonna leave the link.
I know that one.
You know? Okay, okay, because I know, especially us Black women, we're particular about getting this hair wet because it takes a lot sometimes. But it's important to not let that stop us from exercising, going to the
Yeah,
sauna, going
yeah.
swimming. So we got to work around it. It's important. It's essential.
Yeah, and a lot of people that can't do anything on land, you can get them in the pool and they can start moving.
Yeah.
And sometimes we send them with a physical therapist into the pool first for a couple of sessions, and then once you get where you can get in and out of the pool and you can do stuff at home, then they can put you in the aerobic exercise class like in the gym.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I've had a few people come to me who are maybe 30, mid 30s, early 40s with joint pain.
Mhm.
And they're like, there's no way it could be connected to my hormones because I'm too young.
No, that's not true.
It's not. I'm
And
like,
you're mentioning exactly what I mentioned a few minutes ago. People in the 30s, 40s are like, their bodies are degrading like they're 50, 60, 70. They're at the same level of those more advanced ages. And it is hormone imbalance. And it's because of the nutrition.
mm,
The nutrition, the standard American diet is very pro estrogen, but it's dysfunctional estrogen. It's the type of estrogen that your liver should be getting rid of, but it gets overwhelmed and it can't get rid of it because of your nutrition. So that dysfunctional estrogen can cause breast tumors and colon cancer, and it can cause prostate cancer. So we have to try to get our hormones balanced with sufficient nutrition.
so let's talk a little bit more about that. Pro estrogen in the American diet, standard American
Mhm.
diet, unfortunately. Well, what are some foods, maybe top 3 foods you would recommend for us to eat to reduce that estrogen?
So high fiber foods like broccoli and the brassicas family. You probably know what brassicas is, but I'll just say the broccoli family like cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, the collard greens, kale, cabbage. Those are all in the brassicas family.
Yeah.
That's the number one food because it helps. There's phytochemicals or plant chemicals in those foods that help the liver to metabolize the estrogen out of the body.
Okay. So we need to make sure we're getting that in. What foods should we stay away from? Maybe a few.
Number one is refined sugar. And
Yep,
I would
exactly.
say processed grains are number two.
Okay. Refined
Yeah.
sugar, processed grains. Okay.
And then number three, I would say dairy because a lot of the cows are treated with hormones to make them produce more milk. And that hormone gets looked at by our bodies is very similar to estrogen. So it confuses our hormone receptors into thinking that we're consuming more estrogen or that we have more estrogen.
Yeah. And this is what most of us in America eat.
Yes,
Refined sugars, especially first thing in the morning, we're having waffles and pastries and cereal
cereals.
with milk, all these things. That's really good to know. Making sure that we hone in on our nutrition because
Hmm.
it makes a difference in how our body responds at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So
Something else I didn't mention
yeah.
is that insulin resistance gets worse as we get older, especially postmenopausal. And with insulin resistance, like you may think of in younger people, PCOS, you may think of prediabetes, diabetes, or we call that whole category metabolic dysfunction. Something that people are probably not familiar with, but they're starting to hear about now is uric acid. So your uric acid level, if you have insulin resistance, that causes your body to produce more uric acid. So we used to think that gout, which is caused by uric acid, was mostly because people were inheriting certain genes and that those genes were affecting the uric acid metabolism. Well, in more recent years, we know that it's related to how high is your blood sugar, how high is your fasting insulin, how insulin resistant are you? Because then that means you're going to make more uric acid. Uric acid, when it's high, creates crystals that can cause low back pain. There's specific joints that gout hits, like the great toe, the ankle, the elbow, but in reality, gout can hit any joint in your body. So we want to make sure, first of all, doctors don't check uric acid unless you get sent to a rheumatologist. Most primary care are not going to check a uric acid unless you have a classic gout attack. So unless you present with like that great toe, that first joint is swollen and red and you can't touch it and it's like on fire. That's what a gout attack looks like, and it gradually goes away, but it's very bad for pain. Now we're discovering, but I knew this years ago. I see patterns and I recognize stuff before they even have all the research to like back it up.
Yes.
But it just makes sense to me because as a rehab doctor, I saw a lot of people with joint pain and I would have to help them resolve it or get over it.
Yeah.
And you could see that the x-rays looked like people had gout in their joints.
Mm.
So a lot of people with back pain, low back pain, had crystals in their joints. So this is another tie-in to the nutrition.
Yes. And it also makes me think of how important it is for us to listen to our bodies because,
It is.
like you said, oftentimes it's a gout reaction to or it's uric acid, but our bodies are telling us something bigger, some insulin resistance probably, and
Yes.
we often ignore the signs. Oh, it's just maybe from my mattress, my back is hurting. But if it's hurting a lot, you need to pay attention to things like that. So there's a connection with uric acid and insulin resistance. Okay. How would they get checked for uric acid if they're not having the typical symptoms of gout, for example?
So I would recommend a couple of things because doctors are generally only checking the blood sugar to see if people have insulin resistance or prediabetes. And by the time you're showing a high blood sugar, it's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work harder to get it down. The most sensitive test, in my opinion, is the fasting insulin. So if your fasting insulin is in the double digits, above 10 or above, really it's 7 or above, but we'll take it 10 or above.
Right.
10 or above, you got insulin resistance. And if you take a look at your LDL cholesterol, you'll probably see that LDL is elevated. So there are multiple signs that there's insulin resistance. There's a whole bunch more, but the primary care doctors aren't generally going to do it because the insurance is not going to reimburse it. But generally, you could go see somebody like me or functional medicine, integrative medicine, and for $200 or less, or you can even go on some of these sites like Dr. Hyman's, Functional Health, like Life Force. There's a gazillion companies now that will do a health span or a lifespan or longevity type of panel.
Yeah.
And they're generally going to be between like $120 and $200,
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
It is. How important, from your experience, would you say it is for people to get blood panels, and how often should they get blood panels?
So, I would say get the first panel to see what's going on. Most of these companies offer like some kind of membership where you're getting it at least twice a year,
Yeah.
or you can get two on 1 year. If you have a problem like insulin resistance, you need to at a minimum quarterly, but I would say if you start working on it, go and grab an A1C, which is under $10, and you can follow that every month until it comes down to normal levels,
Hmm.
or below 5.7. Yeah. So that's an inexpensive way that almost everybody can afford. And there are many labs that, are even LabCorp and Quest offers direct to patients that they can purchase those online and then go in and get it drawn in A1C.
Okay. Get that A1C. What do you think about the continuous glucose monitors? Are those pretty eye opening?
Those are excellent. They are excellent. And, we use those as tools in practice because people are in denial about what's going on. And when you have inflammation, it's hard to predict really what your fasting blood sugar is going to be. It can kind of depend on what you're eating, but it could be that you had an inflammatory food like 3 or 4 days ago, and that's what confuses people. So they'll eat poorly one day, and then they know they ate poorly, so they're looking at the 24 hours after that,
Yeah.
right? Like with their finger stick blood sugar. And then because I used to get calls all the time when I was in Virginia years ago, because I was seeing all these people that were straight diabetes,
Yeah.
in a functional medicine practice.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the CGMs then, but we were checking their A1Cs and had them checking the finger sticks. And they're calling after 2 days because they're confused. Like, why is my blood sugar still high? I'm eating fine. What did you eat 3 days ago? And how inflammatory was it?
Yeah.
Because if you're insulin resistant and you're eating wheat and gluten and wheat byproducts and grains that are like wheat, that are, super processed or ultra processed, body sees that as inflammatory. And it can't really do anything with it, especially if you're sensitive to it. It just sticks on the bowel wall and it sits there it could be there for weeks for some people.
Inflammation plays a big role in joint pain, obviously,
Yes.
as well. And
Yes.
like you said, I think a lot of people are in denial about, some of the foods that they're eating, or they just had a little small piece. So how could it possibly impact my body in that way? When it comes to inflammation and joint pain, how can it be managed better?
I would say stress is number one. So when I say stress, I mean like it's a whole gamut of things. So mental, emotional, spiritual health, like what's going on in your relationships, what's going on at work, what's happening with your relationships with your kids. They could keep a journal. When you get angry, is your back hurting? When you're stressed, is your neck hurting? What's your working environment? Are you on a computer all day? Do you have an ergonomic station? Are you paying attention to your posture? Are you in the correct sleeping position? All this is kind of hard to do on your own, but it can be done, but it might take you years
Yeah. To figure it out. Figure out like,
out. Because sleeping position, I guarantee you, most people aren't going to figure that out. And that's one of the ones that I can see right away. But people can get tech neck. You're holding up the phone and your head and neck are in a position that can affect your neck, your shoulders, your lower back. You can get headaches, all kinds of things. And the primary care doctors, they're not attuned to this. So you could be going and complaining to them. They might get an x-ray. They might send you to ortho. Generally, the medical system doesn't have time right now to fully assess what's going on. So we have to get realistic about our health. We have to invest time
yeah,
and effort. Yeah.
an
And
app.
lastly, I would say the nutrition the inflammatory nutrition is a big one. Hmm.
Yeah, and some of those
Hmm.
some of the inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods, what would you recommend?
Okay, so the inflammatory foods is kind of like what we talked about before for the estrogen. It's the processed sugars and the refined grains, and then the dairy. Those are all inflammatory foods. And then the anti-inflammatory is going to be whole food nutrition. It's going to be fruits, vegetables. I love bone broth also because it has a lot of minerals and anti-inflammatory aminos in it, amino acids. And then some people are able to tolerate like sourdough and unprocessed grains that people make different things out of breads or whatever. But, people like making a meal out of bread is this is just not recommended, even with like sourdough, because I see a lot of people that are eating sourdough and they're fighting mentally. And when I first started seeing them for about a month, they're fighting for their sourdough because it's like they learn how to make it. They got the little oven thing to make it. They're buying the grain and they're milling the grain themselves. My first question is, where's the grain from? If it's produced in the United States, no, that's not going to help you. And once you sour it and ferment it, it reduces the gluten to about 40%, but you still got 40% gluten. And if you're sensitive to gluten, if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes or insulin resistance, you're going to have a really, really tough time trying to bring your sugar down to normal eating those grains. It's just, I have not seen it in my experience. And I went to this big metabolic conference years ago and I met people from Finland, Northern Europe, and some other parts of Europe. And I was asking them, are you seeing diabetics that are able to eat grain? And they have better grain than we do,
Yes.
but they still are seeing the same thing, but it's just less.
See, now I've had people, and I'm sure you have too. And actually, one gentleman, he had really bad gout. And he said, but Jamila, every time I go to my home country, he's from Europe. He said, I can eat whatever I want. I don't have
And
any
that's
problem.
probably It's probably true, but I would still want to see his CGM to see if he's really, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, well, you still got to be careful, sir. But, you can't tell people what they can and can't eat. You just can advise them and hope that they'll listen. But
Right.
it is interesting that in a lot of other countries outside of America, it seems like people can get away with eating.
They can because it's not ultra processed. And the grain that they're starting out with is not GMO.
Uh,
We think it's multiple factors because we really haven't figured it out in the United States because there are multiple factors going into the grains here. We have GMO, but it's also the pesticides like glyphosate. And glyphosate is an endocrine disruptor.
mm.
So it's going to cause the same problem the dairy's causing, the glyphosate's causing. They're both contributing to infertility in the young people. And in people that are older, the menopausal symptoms are going to be worse.
So a lot of this can be overwhelming for a lot of people. I remember when I first went on my health journey, I was reading all food labels at the grocery store, and I was in the grocery store, Dr. Satcher, crying, like, I can't eat anything. I'm overwhelmed. What can I eat? What can I eat? For people who are kind of on that journey, who are just like, I just want to be healthier. No, I don't want to have dominant estrogen. I want to protect myself from breast
Mhm,
cancer, joint pain,
mhm.
all these things. Is there maybe one or two actions that feel realistic and sustainable that people can do so maybe it's not so overwhelming initially?
Yeah, with the nutrition, I tell people to shop around the edge of the grocery store. That's where the fruits and vegetables and meats are. Just keep it simple. If you stay out of the middle, you're not going to have the processed food. You
Right.
can buy frozen food and canned food, but it needs to be organic, no sauces, read the sodium. Number two is start learning because it takes years to read these labels. Find some apps, like there's an app called Yuka, there's Bobby Parrish's app, Bobby approved. There are other people like nutritionists and people that are teaching label reading online. If you go on YouTube, I'm sure there are people on you may have to watch more than one. It's like Bobby Parrish is a good one because he teaches a lot of label reading on his YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So listening to those podcasts really helps. Read a book like the book by Peter Attia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Read a book like that gives you kind of an overall idea of what you need to get into. You can start getting into, the smaller details by reading books by like Peter Attia. I refer people that want to argue about the grains to Dr. David Perlmutter's books because he's a neurologist and he was the first one that I started listening to many, many years ago about gluten. And there's been so much research, but it's like suppressed. And If people have neurological issues, you can't be in denial about gluten.
Okay.
Hmm.
That sounds like a whole other podcast. There's a connection with gluten and neurological issues.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Noted. Okay. What about sleep quality? How does that impact joint pain and even disrupt hormones?
I'm laughing because this morning I sent a note to a new friend who, for years, this person has been working on their nutrition. I mean, they got it nailed and their body looks fantastic, but they have high blood pressure. And them and their doctor can't figure out why they have high blood pressure.
Mm.
I looked at the labs. I saw a couple of things, a couple of mental notes a few days ago. Then I thought, let me ask about the sleep because circadian rhythm is super important. Primary care generally doesn't ask about it. They may ask people about their sleep, but they don't get into detail.
Yeah.
When are you going to sleep? When are you waking up? When are you eating your meals? Turns out this person, and this is what lots of people do, is staying up until 2 and 3 in the morning, and they're in their late 60s. And this is what's causing and they have a blood pressure abnormality that's associated with a certain blood pressure hormone that comes from the kidneys. So the doctors did do some tests to rule out like the hormonal imbalances that are in the kidney, but they still didn't discover because they never asked him about his sleep and when he was, because he was initially saying, I'm sleeping 8 hours, but he's going to bed at 2 or 3 and then sleeping 8 hours, and that's off circadian. So he's not getting sun into the eyes or on the skin when the sun comes up, sun into the eyes or the skin when the sun goes down. Likely, I didn't get into it, but I think this person is probably exposed to blue light from devices late into the night, which is keeping them from going to sleep on time.
Mm. This is a lot because a
So,
lot of people don't connect sleep with hormone imbalances. They don't connect sleep with deficiencies, with stress, how it puts stress on the body. So, what is the best time for us to go to sleep? Like, what time frame is good for us to get to sleep?
So, according to studies that are based on looking at hormonal levels throughout the day, like they've actually graphed like your estrogen, progesterone, your thyroid hormone, cortisol. They have different peaks during the day and they go into cycles that look like sine waves. And so if you're in the Eastern time zone, you should be going to bed around 10 on average, getting up around 6 on average. It could be a plus or minus 1 hour or so, but really this is a circadian rhythm.
Hey, now I will say this as a mom, I used to stay up like your friend because that was my quiet time. I'm
Mhm,
like,
mhm,
"Ooh, this is like my me time, my quiet time," and I would stay up till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and
mhm,
now that I know that's not good, I'm much better. But
mhm.
there's so much power in your quality of sleep. Is there a connection with sleep quality and breast cancer, would you say?
Yes, I don't know if you've seen the studies, but with breast cancer, there's a relationship with inflammation and melatonin. And they found out that melatonin is anti inflammatory. So, in very cursory studies, they have found out that breast cancer sufferers have lower melatonin levels. So, of course, in conventional medicine, I don't want to say conventional, but halfway conventional, because we're always looking for drugs and so they figured out, okay, give people high doses of melatonin and then they have less recurrence. But really what it boils down to, yeah, what it boils down, and they found that it works for some other cancers too. But
Okay.
what it boils down to is that better sleep quality is necessary. Now, what we see, and they haven't really adequately researched, is the effects of the blue light on the brain. And how much are these devices contributing to interrupting our sleep patterns?
Melatonin has a connection. I did not know that. That's very good to know. And that's encouragement, y'all, to go to sleep.
Yes.
Stop staying up.
And don't go out taking high dose melatonin without a prescription or a recommendation.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Stay under, some people say 3, 5 milligrams,
Yeah.
and you don't want to be taking it regularly because you'll suppress your natural secretion of melatonin.
I okay. Wow. I did not know that. What about I've heard too that women who breastfeed have a greater chance of not getting breast cancer.
Yeah, so now you're talking about risk factors for breast cancer. And first, let me say that being Black is a huge, huge risk factor for having terrible outcomes with breast cancer. And it's because we have a lot of stress. Now you're going to read about, that they don't know why. It's generational stress. We could get all into that in another session.
Yeah.
Well, but the earlier you have menarche, which is when you start your menstrual period, so that's the start of the estrogen influence. Your estrogen went up to a certain level when you started having your period. So now kids are having periods like at 8, 9 years old,
Yeah.
which is not the natural, like when I was a kid, it was like 12,
Yeah.
13. Yes. So the foods have contributed to this early menarche. So the longer you have this estrogen influence unchecked over your lifetime, the more you're at risk for breast cancer. So you want to have a shorter period,
Mhm.
right? So the menarche needs to be like 12, 13, like it used to be. But
Yeah.
you're really going to have to change the diet in the United States to get that to happen on average. So when people are breastfeeding, there's a mix of hormones. And think of it like, like they tell you to drive your car on the highway every now and then to kind of blow it out,
Yeah.
like blow out the carburetor, blow the trash out. So
Right.
that's what happens with breastfeeding. So breastfeeding, you're kind of clearing all the ducts out. The glands have to function normally to produce enough milk for the baby.
Mhm.
So the longer you can breastfeed, the longer you're going to have these hormones are going to be balanced. And estrogen is not going to be unchecked.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
that does. That does. I'm
Mhm.
glad I breastfed.
Mhm.
I breastfed all of my children. And I'm gonna be honest with you because I feel like a lot of people who are watching feel the same way. The subject of breast cancer is very triggering to me
Mm.
because the way it's presented in society, it's scary. It makes you like, oh my gosh, I have to go get a mammogram, which is important. I'm definitely an advocate. Do you have any encouragement or advice for people who are scared to get a mammogram, maybe because they think it's too much radiation and that could cause me to have potential problem with cancer, or just people who are triggered by the subject of breast cancer? Any words of encouragement that you could offer those listeners?
So there's encouraging news, and I actually went out to California and learned how to read. There's a new scan called a QT image, which is QT breast imaging, and it's a derivative of ultrasound. So it's a type of ultrasound. Unfortunately, not all the states have a practitioner that has an imager because it's a special machine. But what a lot of Black women have, and a lot of women that are at increased risk, is because the mammograms don't detect in dense breast. Like they can't see it. And all the smashing that's going on is destroying tissue. And then they're doing all that smashing because they're trying to make the breast thinner so they can see the calcifications in the mammogram. Whereas in the QT image, they're able to see a tumor, whether it has calcification or not, and it's going on the speed of sound that goes through the tumor. So they're able to measure the speed of sound. Unfortunately, insurance companies are not yet covering this in all states, but if you are having second thoughts about going to have a mammogram, and what you said about radiation is actually true, you're exposing yourself to more radiation. They don't want you to know that there are studies that confirm that over years and years you are going to accumulate more radiation, and that can put you at more risk for breast tumors, other types of tumors too in your body, like thyroid, like the lung. So unfortunately, mammogram is still the standard, you know, the gold standard. And unfortunately, even if you go to them and show them another scan, like say you have a 3D ultrasound, which is also widely available. Ultrasound, just plain ultrasound is another way they can see tumors. So you can have these scans and go and show it to the surgeon or whoever to get a biopsy. And what's interesting is that there's still many of them, but maybe they'll start changing their minds. They're still going to refer you because they're afraid to the mammogram, even though they are not going to use the mammogram to decide on like how to do the biopsy or anything like that. They're going to send you to MRI so they can see what the structure looks like, see where they're going, right? Or they'll have you get a biopsy under ultrasound. But the mammogram, they're not actually using that for surgery or biopsy or anything like that.
Really?
No. And I had breast cancer 4 years ago. It did come up on mammogram first. And then, I had other studies so they could see exactly what it looked like. I believe it was ultrasound that I had.
Yeah.
But over the years, um, you have to make your own decisions. People have to make their own decisions based on their own research. And women and everybody that's involved with healthcare, you need to do your own research. You need to find out what options are out there. And if you don't feel like doing it, you need to pay somebody to do it because the people that are taking care of you, they went to school because they had good intentions for helping people, but the system is not allowing them to help people the way they should be.
And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking, to be honest. So wow. So back to the scans that you're referring to. Do you know how can people find that if they wanted to look into?
Oh, they can just look up QT. So Q like quick, T imaging of the breast. Just
Okay.
Google it, and then the website is going to come up, and then you can look for a location. I know there because I had a scan done in Illinois. There's 2 locations that are in Illinois. I want to say South Carolina has one. California has several. New York is getting one. Philly has one. I think New Jersey has one. Virginia. So there are a number of sites, and I used to live in Chicago, so I knew that I could fly in there and get in and get out the same day. You could take the metro, the commuter train up to Crystal Lake, was where I went. But there's also one in Peoria, Illinois. Yeah, so I was able to like fly in, get my scan because it only takes like 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah,
Good.
and it's no radiation. It's sound waves.
Yeah.
No pain, no smashing.
Wow. That's really good to know. Okay, so QT scans, y'all Google that. That's good to know. Yeah, because that's it's important.
Yeah, that keeps a lot of people because mammograms are torture. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, and a lot of people don't want to go. And then if they have dense breasts, they know it's not going to help, and they're still making them go.
Yeah. And people feel very helpless sometimes in these situations, especially like you said, if they have dense breasts, it's like they're telling me to
Yeah,
go.
you have to advocate for yourself. I know I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I know a lot of women here are advocating for ultrasound or MRI. Like they know they've learned because this is a major city that why are you sending me for a mammogram if you already I've had 2 or 3 studies and it's not helping.
Yeah.
Like why would I ever go for a mammogram?
That's it. And you're to your point, you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
If you got to go to another doctor, if you have to go to 3 different doctors until you get somebody to say yes, do it. You have to
Yeah.
advocate. Don't give up. People stop sometimes. Well, the doctor said this is all he can do, or this is all she can do.
And if you just feel like your personality is such that you can't advocate for yourself, there are actually patient advocates out here. But the
Mhm.
thing about this type of thing is you're probably going to have to educate the patient advocate. Patient advocate is not a medical doctor, but they will do research on whatever your concern is and they'll try to help you, either they can go with you to the doctor's office or they can join by phone. but you will pay them. They are not free.
So, and if somebody wants to get a patient advocate, but they just Google patient
Yeah.
advocates. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
They have a certification program.
Yeah. Let me
Mhm.
write that. Let me write that down because
Yeah, I mean, it's a field that I think health coaches could easily get into. I checked it out myself some years ago
yeah.
because I feel like rehab doctors are kind of like health advocates because we spend a lot of time educating the patient on, like, say they had surgery or something, like helping them to understand what they had going on medically
Yeah.
and what they need to look for or what they need to shop for, you know?
Yeah. That's good.
Mhm.
This is so good. Okay. There's so much that I want to still ask you, but I know we're running on time. But how can listeners get in touch with you? Your website? How can we reach Dr. Satcher?
Yeah, so my website is treatyourselftohealth.com.
Okay.
And if you put a backslash schedule on the end, then you'll go to the page. I have some digital programs listed there that people like all over the place can participate in. I have a 1 month program that I highly recommend. I also have a 7-day program for people with joint issues. And the 7-day program, what you can do is just keep repeating the 7-day. Just keep repeating it over and over because it has so much information packed in there, just like we've been talking today. It's
Yeah.
more than most people can absorb in 1 week.
Yeah.
So if you keep doing it, and it's designed to help people try to avoid joint surgery or to enhance their recovery. So we've done studies and we know this is called prehab. So preparing before the surgery, exercise, nutrition, supplements, different things can help people to shorten their recovery time after surgery or injections. And you're going to have therapy after those procedures, but you'll get a jump on it.
Y'all, please reach out to Dr. Satcher. She's amazing. I can't even express. And I definitely run across people all the time who have been told they need surgery for back pain. They need surgery on their foot. They need surgery on all these different things. And no other options have been explored. That's almost the first thing that doctors are recommending. And so please, please explore your options before taking such a huge step. So let's do some groove check questions real quick. This is a little bit lighter and it's just so we can kind of get to know a little bit more about Dr. Satcher. So I will ask the questions and you'll have like 10 to 15 seconds to respond depending on how deep it is, how deep the question is. So the first one I have for you is what's one fun or surprising thing about you that helps people see you beyond your credentials?
Hmm. Well, I lived in Chicago, and when I was living in Chicago and when I was at Northwestern, I did a marathon. And this sports thing was a process because I think everybody thinks that they can do some of these races, but they don't think about, is your body ready or able to endure the damage it's going to get from running continuously for 26.2, which I did.
Whew.
And I also did 3 triathlons, and I did Olympic distance triathlon. I didn't do the sprints. I did I
Listen.
did the distance ones, and I did those the years following that marathon because I was trying to figure out what's the better sport for me. Other than I enjoyed playing tennis and doing other things, but yeah. So,
And not only that, you better have your mind right to be able to do that.
yeah, and I learned that too. Yeah, with the marathon, it's a total mind thing.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. That is pretty impressive. So the next question I have, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice about health and wellness, what would it be?
I think my life would have been a lot different if I had known not to eat bread and wheat and dairy.
Which is pretty much what we've been given, especially as kids.
Yeah, yeah,
God bless all of our parents. They didn't know. I didn't know.
no, yeah. And I have a brother who has the same issue. And he also he's done like 21 marathons.
What? Oh, so
Yeah.
just a marathon family, huh?
No, no. Just he and I. I have 2 other brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one, when it comes to staying healthy and moving your body, what's one habit that you swear by?
That even if you're sick, and this comes from my rehab background,
Yeah.
because in rehab medicine, we're helping people that have brain injury, spinal cord injury, paraplegia, leg amputations, arm amputations.
Wow.
And when they come to rehab, we find exercises for them to do
Yeah.
to recondition them. So I already had that mindset before I trained in rehab medicine. I think it's because my dad and his family, they grew up on a farm and they could never stay in bed. They had to get up, at least walk, get up and at least walk. So
Right.
even when I had to have the breast lumpectomy, and my friends they were checking in on me and they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going out for my 1 hour walk every day because I have to get this many minutes of sunshine. I gotta go out and enjoy nature, put my feet on the ground
Yeah.
so I can get some grounding." So even when I was sick, I was out there walking because I knew that was going to help me get better faster.
Wow. That's
Hmm.
ooh, I wanted to go deeper on that one because movement truly does help healing the
Hmm.
body, just healing the body. And I think when people are in pain, they don't want to move and it makes it worse. So,
Correct, especially joint pain. People think that being still is going to help and it's going to make it worse.
uh,
So there's a gelling phenomenon that we talk about, like in rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and certain arthritic diseases. It's it's like the joint liquid
yeah,
gels up, and they feel it as stiffness. So with osteoarthritis, which most people have, you've got to move. And we know from studies, the more you move to a certain degree, you may need to talk about to a doctor about what type of movement, the specific exercises that you're doing.
yeah,
Because if you're doing knee pain, you don't want to be going up and down stairs all day long, right? You want to be walking on flat surface as much as you can tolerate,
that's right.
but also not pushing past pain that's gonna be detrimental. So you may need some help, like figuring that out.
Right. That's why y'all need to reach out to Dr. Satcher. Okay. Okay, so this is my closing question. If women could only remember one thing from our conversation today about joint health, breast cancer treatment, breast cancer awareness, what would that be?
So I think in the United States, breast cancer awareness and women of color, this is like a big, like I said, if you're black, it's the prognosis, you know, we've got to fight against the prognosis. We have to have awareness. We have to, for prevention, a lot of people's ideas about prevention or what conventional medicine has taught them, get your mammograms every year, but that's really secondary prevention. So you're trying to detect disease. You're not trying to prevent it. So prevent it by changing your habits and your lifestyle and addressing your stress. Because like I said, stress is number one. But you need to move. If you can't do anything else but walk, do that. You can walk in your living room, turn on a YouTube walking exercise video and walk in your living room or step. Change your diet. We told you what to do in the grocery store around the edges. Stop eating the processed food. Stop excusing it. Stop having like these, what do they call it? The reward day or what do they call it?
The cheat day. Cheat day.
The cheat day. So cheat day is for maybe you want to eat more natural sugars or some kind of treat like that, but it's not like birthday cake.
Yeah.
That's just gonna, you're talking about stuff that's gonna reverse months of work as opposed to like if you like sweets, eat some natural sweets or eat a cookie that's keto or do something reasonable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't overindulge now.
Don't overindulge
Yeah.
because that's out.
Yeah.
That's out.
That's it.
Mhm.
Ooh, this is good. Health is wealth, y'all. And I believe that everybody definitely took something away who listened to this episode. This is so much amazing knowledge. I so appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so, so much. I would love
Well,
to have
thank you
you on
for inviting
again.
me.
Of course,
Okay,
of course. So until next
okay.
time, y'all, thank you so much once again. And I'll see y'all next time. Dr. Satcher, thank you so much for such a rich and insightful conversation. You reminded us that health doesn't have to be complicated. And one of my favorite takeaways from today was when we were talking about how overwhelming it can be in terms of managing your health and nutrition. You said shop around the aisles, the produce aisles, and stay away from the other parts of the store. Keep it simple and use tools like the Yuka app to help you really dive into quality foods. Ladies, simplicity is power. When you nourish your body with intention, get your sleep, move daily, manage your stress, you create the foundation for healing from the inside out. If you're ready to dig deeper and create a plan that supports your hormones, your energy, and overall health, I'd love to guide you. Visit www.coachjamilaani.com to learn more about my coaching programs and resources designed to help women like you move from surviving to thriving and get your groove back for good. Until next time, y'all, keep nourishing your body, honoring your rhythm, and protecting your peace. You've got this. To good health, Coach Jamila.